Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the broken engine parts scattered across his workbench. The old fusion drive had given up after 30 years of service, and its owner wanted it fixed for half the cost of a new one. Jake did not mind the challenge. He had been fixing things since he was a boy, and broken machines were like puzzles to him. The trading station, Epsilon 7, hummed with life around him. Ships came and went every day, bringing traders from dozens of different worlds. Jake had seen many strange aliens in his 5 years working here, but he still found them fascinating. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others had 4 or 6 or even more. Some breathed the same air as humans, while others needed special masks or suits. Jake was reaching for his plasma torch when he heard a crash outside his workshop. Through the small window, he saw something large fall near the docking bay. At first, he thought it might be cargo that had fallen from a ship. Then he heard a low moan that sounded like pain. He dropped his tools and rushed outside. What he found made him stop in his tracks. A tall figure lay crumpled on the metal floor, clearly hurt. The being was unlike any alien Jake had seen before. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the stations. Artificial light. Its limbs were long and graceful, and its face was almost human-like, but with larger eyes and more delicate features. The alien wore torn robes that might have been expensive once. Now they were dirty and full of holes. Jake could see that the being was very thin, as if it had not eaten well in a long time. But what struck Jake most were the alien's eyes. They were completely white, with no color at all. The alien was blind. Jake knelt beside the fallen being and spoke softly. "Hey, are you okay? Can you understand me?" The alien's head turned toward Jake's voice. When it spoke, its voice was deep and musical, but the words were in a language Jake did not know. The alien seemed to be asking for help, or maybe apologizing for something. "I don't understand your language," Jake said, "but I want to help you. Are you hurt?" The alien tried to sit up, but fell back down with a groan. Jake could see blood on its robes. Without thinking, he slipped his arms under the alien and helped it to its feet. The being was surprisingly light despite its height. "My workshop is right here," Jake said, guiding the alien slowly. "You can rest there while I figure out how to help you." Inside his workshop, Jake helped the alien sit on an old chair. He brought water and some basic medical supplies. The alien drank the water gratefully, then touched Jake's hand and spoke again. This time, Jake heard something different in the voice. It sounded like the alien was trying to speak human words. "Think ... You," the alien said slowly, struggling. With the sounds, Jake smiled. "You're welcome. My name is Jake. What's your name?" The alien was quiet for a moment, then said, "Zeth Kar. I am ... Zeth Kar." Over the next few hours, Jake learned more about his unexpected guest. Zeth Kar spoke some basic human language, though it was clear he had not used it much. He came from a world called Valeria, where his people lived in great cities and traveled between the stars. Jake had heard of the Valerians before. They were known as proud warriors and skilled in mental powers that humans did not have. But Zeth Kar's story was sad. He had been an officer in the Valerian military, responsible for protecting important secrets. Someone had accused him of giving these secrets to rebels who opposed the government. Zeth Kar swore he was innocent, but no one believed him. As punishment, they had destroyed his eyes and his mental powers. Then they had thrown him out of Valerian space to wander alone. "I cannot go home," Zeth Kar said, his voice full of sadness. "I cannot see. I cannot touch minds like my people do. I am nothing now." Jake felt angry hearing this story. He had always believed that people should be innocent until proven guilty. To punish someone so harshly based on accusations seemed cruel. But what made him even more angry was how Zethkar had been abandoned. On human worlds, there were programs to help blind people live normal lives. Here on the station, Zethkar was just a beggar hoping for scraps. "You're not nothing," Jake said firmly. "You're a person who needs help, and I'm going to help you." Zethkar's head tilted in confusion. "Why would you help me? I am not human. I have nothing to give you." Jake thought about this question. Why did he want to help? Maybe it was because he had always felt sorry for people who were suffering. Maybe it was because he liked solving problems. Or maybe it was because he believed that all thinking beings deserved a chance at a good life. "Because it's the right thing to do," Jake said simply. That night, Jake gave Zethkar a place to sleep in the back room of his workshop. He brought food and clean clothes. But as he lay in his own bed, Jake's mind was working on a bigger problem. He had seen many different kinds of medical technology on the station. Some aliens had artificial eyes that worked better than natural ones. Others had devices that could heal injuries that would kill a human. Jake was not a doctor, but he was good at understanding how things worked. He began to wonder if there might be a way to help Zethkar see again. Not just see, but maybe even get back some of the mental abilities he had lost. The next morning, Jake started researching. He accessed the station's medical databases and began reading about Valyrian biology. He learned that Valyrian eyes were connected to special parts of their brains that humans did not have. These parts allowed them to sense things beyond normal, sight, and to communicate with other Valyrians through thought alone. The more Jake read, the more excited he became. The Valyrians who had punished Zethkar thought his injuries could never be healed, but they had only tried using Valyrian medicine. Maybe human technology, combined with alien science, could do something different. Jake looked at Zethkar, who was sitting quietly in the corner of the workshop. The alien looked lost and hopeless, but Jake saw potential. He saw a puzzle that needed solving. "Zethkar," Jake said, "how would you feel about trying something that has never been done before?" Jake spent the next 3 weeks learning everything he could about Valyrian biology. He read medical files, studied alien technology manuals, and even traded favors with other mechanics to get access to specialized equipment. Zethkar helped, when he could, explaining how his people's mental abilities worked and what it felt like to lose them. "Before punishment," Zethkar said one day, "I could feel other Valyrians' thoughts like whispers in my mind. I could see heat from living bodies, even through walls. I could sense danger before it happened. Now there was only silence and darkness." Jake nodded as he worked on his latest design. He had been sketching ideas for a special suit that could help Zethkar. The more he learned, the more he realized how complex the challenge was. Valyrian eyes were not just for seeing. They were connected to parts of the brain that processed mental energy and telepathic signals. "What if I could build something that does all those things?" Jake asked. "Not just give you sight, but give you back your other abilities too?" Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. "My people tried for many years to heal others like me. They always failed. Why do you think you can succeed?" Jake looked up from his work. "Because I'm not trying to fix what was broken. I'm trying to build something completely new." The project consumed all of Jake's free time. He worked late into the night, surrounded by pieces of alien technology he had bought, borrowed, or salvaged. Some parts came from medical devices used by different species. Others came from communication equipment, or even weapon systems. Jake was combining technologies that had never been put together before. The hardest part was creating the neural interface. This was the system that would connect the suit to Zethkar's brain. Jake studied brain scans of healthy Valyrians and compared them to scans of Zethkar's damaged neural pathways. He could see exactly where the injuries were and how they had affected the connections between different parts of the brain. "I think I can bypass the damaged areas," Jake told Zethkar one evening. "Instead of trying to repair them, I can create new pathways using the suit's computer system." The suit itself was a work of art. Jake had designed it to be sleek and lightweight, covering Zethkar's upper body and head without being bulky or uncomfortable. The helmet portion contained advanced optical sensors that could see in many different spectrums of light. These sensors were connected to a powerful computer that would process visual information and send it directly to Zethkar's brain. But Jake's most ambitious addition was the telepathic enhancement system. He had studied how Valyrian mental abilities worked and created artificial organs that could detect and transmit the same kind of mental energy. If his calculations were correct, the suit would not only restore Zethkar's original abilities, but make them stronger than they had ever been. The computer system that controlled everything was something Jake was particularly proud of. He had programmed it to learn from Zethkar's thoughts and adapt to his needs. Jake named the system Harmony because it was designed to work in perfect balance with Zethkar's natural biology. "This is incredible work," said Dr. Ellen Parker, the station's chief medical officer, when Jake showed her the completed suit. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you sure it's safe?" Jake had run hundreds of tests and simulations. The suit's power systems were stable, the neural interfaces were carefully calibrated, and all the safety protocols were in place. But he knew that the real test would come when Zethkar actually used it. "There's always risk," Jake admitted, "but Zethkar has agreed to try it. He says that even if it fails, he'll be no worse off than he is now." The day of the first test, Jake was more nervous than he had ever been in his life. If something went wrong, he could seriously hurt his friend. But if it worked, he would have accomplished something that the most advanced medical science in the galaxy had said was impossible. Zethkar sat calmly as Jake helped him put on the suit. The alien had been preparing for this moment for weeks, practicing meditation techniques that would help him adjust to the new sensations he might experience. "Are you ready?" Jake asked, his hand hovering over the activation switch. Zethkar nodded. "I have been ready for this my whole life." Jake pressed the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the suit's lights began to glow softly, and the computer systems came online. Jake watched the readouts on his monitor, checking that all systems were functioning properly. Suddenly, Zethkar gasped. His whole body went rigid, and for a terrible moment, Jake thought something had gone wrong. Then he heard Zethkar whisper something in his own language. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with wonder. "I can see," he said. "Jake, I can see you." But it was more than just sight. Over the next few hours, as Zethkar learned to use the suit, Jake discovered that his invention had exceeded even his own expectations. Zethkar could see heat signatures through walls, detect electrical fields around electronic devices, and even sense the emotions of people nearby. "This is impossible," Zethkar said, looking at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "I feel stronger than I ever did before. How did you do this?" Jake smiled. "I told you I wasn't trying to fix what was broken. I was building something new." As the days passed, Zethkar learned to use more of the suit's capabilities. He could interface directly with computers, accessing information at the speed of thought. He could detect life signs from great distances, and even predict when someone was about to lie to him by reading their emotional state. "My people would not believe this," Zethkar said one day, as he practiced using the suit's enhanced abilities. "They think healing means returning to what was before. You have made me something greater." Jake was proud of his work, but he was even more proud of the friendship that had grown between them. Zethkar had taught him about Valyrian culture, sharing stories of his homeworld and explaining the complex honor codes that governed his people's behavior. In return, Jake had shared his own knowledge of human engineering and his belief that any problem could be solved with enough creativity. And determination. Word of Jake's achievement began to spread throughout the station. Other aliens came to see the miracle healing suit, and some asked if Jake could help them with their own medical problems. Jake found himself working on devices to help a trader with damaged lungs, a refugee with a broken arm that had healed incorrectly, and an elderly alien whose memory was failing. "You have become famous," Sethkar observed one evening as they watched another grateful patient leave the workshop. "People are calling you the healer of the rim." Jake shrugged. "I just like fixing things. It doesn't matter if it's a broken engine or a broken person." But even as Jake enjoyed his success, he noticed that Sethkar sometimes seemed troubled. When Jake asked about it, the alien would only say that he was worried about the future. "My people have ways of knowing what happens in distant places," Sethkar explained. "Even with my punishment, I sometimes feel echoes of the old connections. I think news of what you have done for me is spreading beyond this station." Jake didn't understand why this would be a problem. He had helped his friend and saved his life. Surely that was a good thing. No matter who knew about it. He would learn soon enough that sometimes doing the right thing could have unexpected consequences. 3 months after Sethkar first put on the healing suit, Jake's workshop had become the most famous place on Epsilon 7. Every day, beings from across the galaxy came seeking help for problems that regular medicine could not fix. Jake had expanded his operation, hiring 2 assistants and converting the old storage room next door into a proper medical facility. Sethkar had become more than just Jake's friend. He was now the protector of everyone who came seeking help. His enhanced abilities allowed him to detect threats before they became dangerous, and his restored confidence had made him a natural leader among the station's refugees and outcasts. "There are 3 ships approaching from the outer system," Sethkar told Jake one morning, his enhanced senses picking up the information from the station's communication arrays. "They carry refugees from the Kethan war zone. Many are injured." Jake looked up from the neural regeneration device he was building for a trader who had lost his memory in an accident. "How many injured?" "At least 40. Some have chemical burns. Others have radiation sickness. There are also children who have not spoken since their families were killed." Jake sighed. Each day brought new challenges, new problems to solve. But he had learned that helping others gave his life meaning in a way that fixing engines never had. "We'll need more medical supplies. Can you contact Dr. Parker and see what she can spare?" Sethkar nodded and touched a control panel on his suit. Within seconds, he had established a direct communication link with the station's medical center. Jake still marveled at how smoothly the suit worked. It had become like a second skin for Sethkar, responding to his thoughts and needs without any conscious effort. Over the past months, Jake had continued to improve the suit's capabilities. He had added new sensors, upgraded the computer systems, and even found ways to enhance Sethkar's natural healing abilities. The alien could now help others recover from injuries just by touching them, channeling healing energy through the suit's biofield generators. "Dr. Parker says she can provide basic medical supplies," Sethkar reported. "But she wants to know if you can create something to help the children who have been traumatized. Regular therapy is not working for their species." Jake thought about this. He had been working on a device that could help repair damaged neural pathways, but he had never considered using it for psychological trauma. "Maybe I can modify the neural interface technology. If I can create a device that helps them process their memories safely." "You always find a way," Sethkar said with something that might have been a smile. Valyrian faces were hard for humans to read, but Jake had learned to recognize his friend's expressions. As Jake worked on the new device, he noticed that Sethkar seemed more troubled than usual. The alien had been having strange dreams lately. Visions of his homeworld that seemed too vivid to be just memories. "Tell me about these dreams," Jake said during their lunch break. Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. "In my culture, we believe that strong emotions can create connections across vast distances. When I was punished, they tried to cut all my connections to other Valyrians. But your suit has made me stronger than I was before. I think I am feeling echoes of what is happening on my homeworld." "What kind of echoes?" "Fear, excitement, and something else, curiosity. I think they know about what you have done for me." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Is that bad?" "I do not know. My people are proud, and they do not like to be shown that their ways are not perfect. But they also respect strength and innovation. The fact that a human has accomplished what our greatest healers could not. It will cause much debate in the Imperial Court." Before Jake could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the station. The emergency communication system crackled to life, and the voice of Station Commander Murphy filled the air. "All residents, this is a priority announcement. We have received word that a Valyrian Imperial fleet has entered our system. They are requesting permission to dock. All non-essential personnel should remain in their quarters until further notice." Jake and Zethkar looked at each other. They both knew this was not a coincidence. "They have come for me," Zethkar said quietly. "Or perhaps for you, or both." Jake felt his heart racing. He had heard stories about the Valyrian Empire's power. Their ships were said to be the size of cities, and their military was feared across the galaxy. "What do we do?" "We wait," Zethkar said, "and we prepare for whatever is coming." Over the next few hours, Jake watched through his workshop window as the largest ship he had ever seen approached the station. The Valyrian flagship was like a moving mountain, its dark hull covered in weapons that could destroy entire worlds. Smaller ships surrounded it like a protective swarm. The station's population was in a state of panic. Many aliens remembered the last time the Valyrian fleet had visited this sector. It had been during a conflict with rebels, and several neutral stations had been destroyed just for refusing to provide information. Jake Morrison and the being known as Zethkar came a new voice over the communication system. This voice was deeper and more commanding than Commander Murphy's. "You are commanded to present yourselves aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion within 2 hours. Any delay will be considered an act of defiance against the Valyrian Empire." Jake's mouth went dry. "They want both of us." Zethkar stood up, his enhanced senses already scanning the station for threats. "There are 300 Imperial Marines aboard that ship. They have energy weapons that can cut through the station's hull like paper. We have no choice but to go. What will they do to us?" "That depends on who is commanding the fleet. If it is one of the military commanders, they will likely try to take your technology by force. If it is someone from the royal court, Zethkar paused, and we may have a chance to negotiate." Jake began gathering his most important research files and equipment designs. If the Valyrians wanted his technology, at least he could control how much they learned about it. What about all the people we've been helping? What about the refugees arriving today? They will be safe for now. The Valyrians are not interested in common people, only in power and technology. As they prepared to leave, Jake couldn't help but think about how much his life had changed. 6 months ago, he had been a simple mechanic fixing broken engines. Now he was about to meet with the representatives of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. "Are you afraid?" Zethkar asked as they walked toward the docking bay where a Valyrian shuttle waited for them. Jake considered the question. "Yes, but also curious. I've never met an emperor before." "You may not meet the emperor himself, but whoever is commanding this fleet has enough power to destroy this entire system if they choose to." As they boarded the shuttle, Jake looked back at his workshop one last time. Through the window, he could see the line of aliens still waiting for help. Unaware that their healer might not be coming back, the shuttle's engines roared to life, and they began the journey to the massive flagship. Jake watched the station grow smaller below them and wondered if he would ever see it again. But beside him, Zethkar sat calmly, his enhanced senses already probing the ship they were approaching. "There is something you should know," Zethkar said as they neared the flagship. "The commander of this fleet is not who I expected. According to the ship's identification codes, we are about to meet Emperor Kethver himself." Jake's heart stopped. "The Emperor? Here. It seems your reputation has reached the very highest levels of Valyrian society. This could be very good. For us, or very bad." The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and Jake heard the airlock cycling open. Whatever happened next would determine not just their fate, but the fate of everyone they had tried to help. The inside of the Valyrian flagship was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The corridors were huge, with ceilings that stretched up into darkness. The walls were made of some kind of black metal that seemed to absorb light, and strange symbols glowed along the edges. Everything was designed to make visitors feel small and powerless. 2 Valyrian guards led Jake and Zethkar through the ship. The guards were massive, even by Valyrian standards, and wore armor that hummed with energy. Their faces were hidden behind masks that made them look more like machines than living beings. "I have never been on the Emperor's personal ship before," Zethkar whispered to Jake as they walked. "Even when I was an officer, I was not important enough to come here." Jake tried to stay calm, but his heart was pounding. Through his enhanced senses, Zethkar could feel Jake's fear and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Remember," Zethkar said quietly, "Valyrians respect strength and honesty. Do not try to flatter the Emperor or make yourself seem more important than you are. Just tell the truth." They passed through security checkpoints where strange machines scanned their bodies and minds. Jake felt a tingling sensation as the scanners examined him, but Zethkar's suit somehow shielded both of them from the deeper probes. Finally, they reached a massive door that was at least 30 feet tall. The guards pressed their hands against panels on either side, and the door began to slide open with a sound like distant thunder. The throne room beyond was enormous. The floor was made of polished stone that reflected the light from thousands of crystals embedded in the ceiling. At the far end of the room, on a raised platform, sat the most impressive being Jake had ever seen. Emperor Kethver was tall even by Valyrian standards, and his presence filled the room like a physical force. His skin was darker than most Valyrians, almost purple, and his eyes glowed with an inner light. He wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, and a crown that looked like it was carved from a single piece of crystal. "Approach," the Emperor said, his voice carrying easily across the vast space. Jake and Zethkar walked forward, their footsteps echoing in the silence. When they reached the base of the platform, Zethkar dropped to one knee and bowed his head. Jake, not knowing what else to do, did the same. "Rise," the Emperor commanded. "Zethkar, former officer of the Third Fleet, you have been away from us for a long time." "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty," Zethkar replied, his voice steady despite the tension Jake could feel radiating from him. "And you must be Jake Morrison, the human who has accomplished what our greatest healers claimed was impossible." Jake looked up at the Emperor, trying to meet his glowing eyes. "I just wanted to help my friend, Your Majesty." A sound that might have been laughter came from the Thea. "Emperor. Simple words, but they have caused great disturbance in my empire. Do you know what you have done?" "I built a suit to help Zethkar see again," Jake said, confused by the question. "You have proven that Valyrian justice can be undone by human ingenuity. You have shown that our punishments are not permanent." You have made our medical science look primitive." The Emperor's voice grew darker with each word. "These are not small things, human." Jake felt a chill of fear, but he forced himself to speak. "I'm sorry if I caused problems, Your Majesty. I didn't mean to insult your people or your science. I just saw someone who needed help." The Emperor studied Jake for a long moment, then turned to Zeth-Kar. "Tell me, former officer, what do you know of recent events in the capital?" Zeth-Kar's enhanced senses allowed him to pick up subtle changes in the Emperor's tone and posture. "I know only what my suit has allowed me to sense, Your Majesty. There has been unrest. Someone has been exposed as a traitor." "Indeed." "Commander, Vexthal, the one who accused you of treason, has been found to be working with our enemies. The evidence of his guilt was discovered 3 months ago, shortly after reports of your resurrection began to reach us." Jake saw Zeth-Kar's body go rigid with shock. "Then I was innocent. My punishment was unjust." "Yes, and according to our laws, you should be restored to your former rank and position. But there is a problem." The Emperor gestured to Jake. "Your healing came not from Valyrian medicine, but from human technology. This creates a complicated situation." Jake was beginning to understand the political implications of what he had done. "You're saying that if you admit I helped him, it makes your people look bad?" "More than that. If word spreads that human technology is superior to Valyrian science, it could destabilize the entire empire. Our authority comes from the belief that we are the most advanced species in the galaxy." The Emperor stood up from his throne, and Jake could feel the power radiating from him. "I have several options. I can destroy this station and everyone on it, ensuring that news of your technology never spreads. I can take you both prisoner and claim that Zeth-Kar was healed by secret Imperial technology. Or," he paused, studying Jake intently, "I can make you an offer." "What kind of offer?" Jake asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "Join my empire. Become my chief medical engineer. Share your technology with us, and we will make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. You will have resources that no human has ever possessed, and your work will benefit billions of beings across the galaxy." Jake looked at Zeth-Kar, who was watching him with concern. "And if I refuse? Then this station and everyone on it will be destroyed. Your technology will be lost, and your friend will die along with you. The choice is yours, but you have only minutes to decide." Jake felt the weight of the decision crushing down on him. He thought about all the people he had helped, all the refugees who were counting on him, all the future patients who might need his technology. But he also thought about what it would mean to give his life's work to an empire that had cruelly punished an innocent person. "Your Majesty," Jake said slowly, "I understand why you want my technology, but I can't just give it to you and let you control who gets help and who doesn't. The healing technology should be available to everyone, not just your empire." The Emperor's eyes flashed with anger. "You dare to refuse me? You are one human on a small station, facing the might of the entire Valyrian Empire. What makes you think you have any power to negotiate?" Jake looked around the throne room, at the guards and the displays of power. Then he looked at Zeth-Kar, who was watching him with something that might have been pride. "Because I have something you want," Jake said, "and because I have a friend who knows your laws better than you think I do." Zeth-Kar stepped forward, his enhanced senses detecting subtle changes in the Emperor's emotional state. "Your Imperial Majesty, I invoke the ancient right of challenge. This human's technology belongs to me by right of healing. Any claim to? It must be settled by combat." The Emperor stared at Zeth-Kar in surprise. "You would challenge me to single combat?" "I would challenge your champion, as the law allows. If I win, Jake's technology remains free for all beings to use. If I lose, you may do with us as you wish." Jake grabbed Zethkar's arm. "You can't fight the Emperor's champion. It's suicide." But Zethkar's enhanced senses were telling him something different. Through the suit's analysis of the Emperor's body language and vocal patterns, he could detect something unexpected: respect. "The Emperor will accept," Zethkar said quietly. "He has no choice. The law is clear, and he cannot refuse an honorable challenge." Emperor Kethfer was silent for a long moment, then smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Very well. I accept your challenge. Commander Colfax will fight as my champion. The combat will take place in 1 hour in the ship's arena. If you win, your friend's technology will be shared freely with all species. If you lose ... he shrugged. "Well, you will not live to see the consequences." As they were led away to prepare for the battle, Jake felt both terrified and amazed. In the space of an hour, he had gone from being a simple mechanic to being at the center of a conflict that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. "Are you sure about this?" he asked Zethkar as they reached the holding area. Zethkar was already running diagnostics on his suit, preparing for the fight of his life. "I am sure of nothing, except that some things are worth fighting for. Your technology has given me not just my sight, but my honor. Now I must prove that both are worth defending." The arena was a massive circular chamber deep in the heart of the flagship. The floor was covered with a strange metal that could absorb energy attacks, and the walls were lined with thousands of seats for spectators. But today, only the Emperor and his closest advisors were present to witness the combat. Jake stood in the observation area, his hands pressed against the protective barrier that separated him from the fighting floor. Below, Zethkar was making final adjustments to his suit, while Commander Colfax prepared his weapons on the opposite side of the arena. Colfax was a terrifying opponent. He was even larger than the Emperor, with scars covering his dark blue skin and cybernetic implants that enhanced his natural abilities. His armor was covered with weapons, and his eyes glowed with the same inner light as the Emperor's, but brighter and more dangerous. "Your friend is brave," said a voice behind. "Jake." He turned to see the Emperor approaching, his robes flowing like liquid shadow. "He's also smart," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "He wouldn't have challenged your champion if he didn't think he could win," the Emperor smiled. "Confidence is admirable, but Colfax has never been defeated in combat. He has killed rebels, assassins, and even rogue Valyrian officers. Your friend's suit may have given him back his abilities, but it cannot give him the experience of a true warrior." Jake watched as Zethkar tested his suit systems one last time. The optical sensors were functioning perfectly. The neural interfaces were stable, and the telepathic enhancers were operating at full capacity. But Jake knew that all the technology in the galaxy couldn't make up for the difference in combat experience. "The rules are simple," the Emperor announced to the arena. "Combat continues until one fighter yields or dies. No weapons are forbidden. No tactics are dishonored. Let the challenge begin." A deep gong sounded, and the battle started immediately. Colfax moved with surprising speed for such a large being, drawing an energy blade that crackled with deadly power. He charged across the arena floor, his cybernetic legs carrying him forward like a missile. But Zethkar was ready. His enhanced senses had been tracking Colfax's movements even before the gong sounded. He rolled to the side just as the energy blade slashed through the air where his head had been moments before. "Impressive reflexes," Colfax growled, his voice amplified by his armor speakers. "But reflexes alone will not save you." The champion attacked again, this time with a series of rapid strikes that would have overwhelmed any normal fighter. But Zethkar's suit was analyzing each attack, predicting the next move based on muscle tension and body positioning. He ducked under a horizontal slash, jumped over a low sweep, and countered with a punch that sent Colfax stumbling backward. "He's actually fighting back," Jake whispered in amazement. "Do not celebrate yet," the Emperor warned. "Colfax is only testing your friend's abilities. The real battle has not begun." As if responding to the Emperor's words, Colfax activated more of his cybernetic implants. His eyes blazed brighter, and Jake could see energy coursing through the mechanical parts of his body. When he attacked again, his movements were faster and more precise. Zethkar found himself being pushed back across the arena floor. His suit's defensive systems were working overtime, deflecting energy blasts and absorbing the impact of physical strikes. But Jake could see that his friend was taking damage. The suit's armor was beginning to show cracks, and Zethkar's movements were becoming slower. "Your technology is impressive," the Emperor said to Jake, "but it cannot overcome the fundamental difference between a healer and a warrior." Jake watched in growing despair as Colfax landed a solid hit that sent Zethkar crashing into the arena wall. His friend struggled to get back to his feet, and Jake could see blood on his face through the suit's transparent faceplate. But then something changed. Zethkar stood up straighter, and his suit's systems began to glow more brightly. Jake realized what was happening. The suit's AI system, Harmony, was learning from the combat and adapting its responses. "You fight well," Zethkar said to Colfax, his voice carrying clearly across the arena. "But you fight like a Valyrian warrior, following the old patterns. I have learned to fight like something new." What happened next was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Zethkar began to move in ways that seemed impossible, using his enhanced senses to anticipate attacks before they happened, and countering with techniques that combined human creativity with Valyrian strength. When Colfax fired an energy blast, Zethkar didn't just dodge it. He used the suit's electromagnetic sensors to predict the beam's path and position himself so that it reflected off the arena's metal floor and back at his opponent. When the champion tried to use his telepathic abilities to confuse Zethkar, the suit's neural shields not only protected him, but allowed him to trace the mental attack back to its source. "This is impossible," one of the Emperor's advisors whispered. "No one fights like this." But Zethkar was doing more than just fighting. He was teaching. With each exchange, he showed Colfax and everyone watching that there were new ways to use old abilities. The suit hadn't just restored his powers. It had given him the tools to transcend the limitations that had defined Valyrian combat for centuries. The turning point came when Colfax, frustrated by his inability to land a decisive blow, activated his most powerful weapon system. Energy erupted from his armor in all directions, turning the arena into a storm of deadly radiation that would have killed any unprotected being instantly. Zethkar's suit was designed to handle energy in all its forms. Instead of being destroyed by the attack, he absorbed it, channeling the power through his suit's systems and redirecting it back at his opponent in a controlled burst that overloaded Colfax's cybernetic implants. The champion fell to his knees, his armor smoking and his weapons offline. For a moment, the arena was completely silent. "Do you yield?" Zethkar asked, standing over his fallen opponent. Colfax looked up at him, and Jake could see something like respect in the warrior's eyes. "I yield. You have fought with honor and skill beyond my understanding." The Emperor stood up slowly, his expression unreadable. "The challenge is complete. Zethkar has proven his claim by right of combat." Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he could see that the Emperor was not finished speaking. "However," the Emperor continued, "I am not convinced that your friend's technology should be given away freely. Such power in the wrong hands could destabilize the entire galaxy." Zethkar removed his helmet, revealing a face that was calm despite the battle he had just won. "Your Imperial Majesty, I propose a compromise that honors both human wisdom and Valyrian tradition." The Emperor raised an eyebrow. "Speak." "Jake's healing technology will be shared with all species, including the Valyrian Empire. But it will be administered through a new institute, staffed by healers from many worlds and dedicated to helping all beings, not just those who can afford to pay." Jake stepped forward. "And the institute will be neutral territory, protected by treaty from all governments. No empire or nation will be able to control it or use it for military purposes." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment, considering the proposal. Around him, his advisors whispered among themselves, debating the implications. "And what guarantee do I have that this institute will not become a threat to imperial security?" the Emperor asked. "Because I will oversee its security. Personally," Zethkar replied. "I will ensure that the technology is used only for healing, never for harm. And in return, I ask that my name be cleared and my punishment officially reversed." The Emperor looked from Zethkar to Jake, then back again. "You would give up the chance to return to your former position in the Imperial military for this?" "I would give up everything to ensure that no one else suffers as I have suffered, and that those who need help can receive it regardless of their species or status." Jake felt a surge of pride in his friend, even after everything he had endured. Zethkar was thinking of others first. The Emperor stood in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then slowly he nodded. "Very well. Your proposal is acceptable. The Institute will be established under Imperial protection, and your punishment will be officially reversed. But I have one condition." "Name it, Your Majesty," Jake said. "You will train a select group of Valyrian healers in your techniques, not to steal your technology, but to ensure that the knowledge is preserved and can be developed further. Innovation should not be the privilege of a single species." Jake smiled. "I'd be happy to teach anyone who wants to learn." 3 months later, Jake stood in the medical wing of the new Galactic Healing Institute, watching as doctors from a dozen different species worked together to help patients from across the galaxy. The Institute had been built on Epsilon 7, transforming the small trading station into a center of medical learning and research. Zethkar stood beside him, no longer wearing the combat version of his suit, but a newer, more advanced model designed specifically for healing work. His official rank in the Valyrian military had been restored, but he had chosen to serve as the Institute's chief of security instead. "Do you ever regret your choice?" Jake asked as they watched a young Valyrian. Doctors successfully treat a patient using techniques that combine traditional healing with Jake's technology.